Under the city, we see images related to its founding, the conquering of nearby tribes by the Mexica. Their temples burn while the Mexica wield clubs, one obsidian-studded. This is probably part of the founding stories of the city. That is, for many years before finding the place to begin their city, the Mexica had been vassals of more powerful neighbors, trying to survive amongst hostile people, often serving as mercenaries. It's unlikely, then, that the Mexica, upon founding their city, immediately rose to dominance of the surrounding. But this scene still serves a clear purpose. It reinforces the story of the map, a story of a divinely guided people arising to great power. Around the entire map and story lie calendar glyphs, each representing a year in the Mexica 52-year cycle of time called the Shumopili. Each new cycle of 52 years was marked by ceremonies of purification, in particular the fire drill ceremony. In this ceremony, all fires would be extinguished and born again from a new fire, created with a fire drill in the body of a sacrifice, typically a captured warrior. Then this fire would be distributed by the priests to all the people for the beginning of a new 52-year cycle. The typical story of the 72-page Codex Mendoza is that it was commissioned by Antonio de Mendoza, the viceroy of New Spain, for the purpose of being sent to King Charles V to inform him about the history of the Mexica, his new subjects. But there's actually very little evidence for this. There are no marks on the codex itself that indicate its commissioning by Mendoza, and its traditional style seems aimed at other Mexica, not Europeans. This deeply traditional style is part of what makes the codex so valuable today. You can see, for instance, that the Codex Mendoza shows figures in two-dimensional profile, with strong, bold lines, a general lack of perspective, and little importance paid to filling in background details. Anything that is shown on the page has importance. Flames or plants are drawn in an artistic manner, not in any attempt to be photorealistic. However, many other codices from the same time weren't done the same way and show mixtures of European and Mexica style. We can see this in the Relación de Michoacán. This is another codex made at about the same time, which was actually prepared for Antonio de Mendoza, as it shows in an illustration in the book itself, in order for him to understand the politics and history of the perched, a tribe to the west of Tenochtitlan. In the Relación de Michoacán, we see something in between the Codex Mendoza and a more European painting style. Figures are still mostly two-dimensional, but they're placed in wider scenes that are more fleshed out with background, and blood or other details are given more of a photorealistic appearance. The Codex Mendoza's traditional style and the lack of evidence of its commissioning has led to many questions about its origins. It's true that the paper that the codex is made with is from Spain, which certainly indicates something about its provenance, but it rarely mixes European and Mexica styles. Scholars have noted that some shading in the book, as well as one page that has a bit of perspective on it, may have European influence. But overall, the book seems to make no real effort to fit to European traditions or to teach Europeans about anything. The book itself was only assembled and bound by the Spanish in order to fit a more European familiarity with bound books. The written notations that you see covering the page were done by a Spanish friar in order to add context to its images before it was shipped to Spain. The final page of the manuscript also states that the interpreter had only 10 days to add the notations before the codex was shipped off, and perhaps as a result, he made numerous mistakes. We can see this on the map, where these two figures are given the wrong names. This man is Asatzitl, Hair of the Grass Reed, and this man is Asolopan, Jaguar Banner, but their names have been mistakenly exchanged. It is possible that this book, despite being made on Spanish paper, was not explicitly made for Spanish purposes, but instead was made by Mexica artists for their own reasons, for people who would understand its symbols and stories. Perhaps it was largely copied from other works in order to preserve them. We just don't know for sure. But this does make an impact on the map, because the stories being told are Mexica stories, likely laid out for Mexica eyes, and only later notated for European knowledge. This is a cultural history, and not just a map. Whatever the circumstances surrounding the Codex's creation, it did end up being shipped from America. But what happened once it was on the ocean is also unclear. There are some indications that it may never have reached Spain, and that French pirates stole the book and secreted it to France. But these stories are hard to substantiate and might just be fancies imagined by their chroniclers. In any case, it didn't stay very long in Spain, and was in the ownership of French cosmographer André Thevet as early as 1553, 10 years after it was made. We can see that Teve, in a weird flex, felt the need to write his name directly on the map page, stating that he was cosmographer to the king. He also wrote his name in 5 other places in the document. Thanks, Andre. Anyway, the codex changed hands repeatedly in the ensuing years until finding a home at Oxford University in 1659, where it still is today. It was reproduced in woodcut and written about by Samuel Purchas, and was received with some excitement in the early days, but was subsequently forgotten, until being rediscovered in 1831. Today, it remains one of the most important documents for historians of Mesoamerica.